Okay, everyone, I would like to welcome you to this Fire Circle session. I am Fernando from Evolving Temple, and I am very excited to be here with you. As I mentioned the email I sent to you, I feel like screaming from the roof because I feel that this message is absolutely very important for, for those who are ready. So that's what we are here for, to discuss about the possibilities of healing and mind development through altered states of consciousness. Specifically in today's discussion, we discuss how can we use psychedelic integration in creating healing and mind development. Right. So as we dive in, I have prepared a few slides, and I promise that this is a bit of an interactive session, and also I will try to tell a story as much as possible. Right. Um, there are a couple of questions lined up for you. If you feel comfortable, feel free to share your thoughts with us. Right. So now this session is a complementary session that we would like to bring to the community, because we believe that psychedelic education is extremely important these days, especially considering that psychedelics are being recognized around the world for healing and development purposes, especially in a therapeutic setting. We believe sharing this information for education, reflection, and harm reduction purposes is important. So we are trying to bring about that change to the world within our capacity. So we are Evolving Temple, and what we do is creating healing and mind development through altered states of consciousness. Now, today, I would like to welcome you to Fire Circle 001. So this is our official, very first public session where we bring psychedelic education and reflection to you. So today's conversation revolves around reset your brain, reset your life, literally. Well, when I say this, I take a very big responsibility, and I would like to mention to you, I dive into this conversation keeping that responsibility in mind. Right. So to begin, let's have a look at how we look at healing journeys or developmental journeys at Evolving Temple, especially from a psychedelic development lens. Now, as human beings, we live in a hostile world, the three-dimensional world. We need to feel the pain in order for us to be able to actually survive in this environment, hostile environment that we are in. Now, if we begin with understanding that there is fear, there is pain in this world, there is suffering in this world, in other words, and when we expose ourselves to such suffering, often we make changes to our body and to our mind. And these changes that happen to us as a result of our existence create imbalances in our body. Like, for an example, if you think, what is he talking about? I would like to share with you. Let's think of a virus, right? And we have experienced a pandemic, right? So a virus is something that changes our body, which is an external stimuli that comes into our body, right? So when something like that happens, we change certain things internally. Like, for an example, such experiences can be traumatic, right? And then we store that trauma in our body. And not only us, even our ancestors have stored their trauma in them, because they want to pass it on to us, so that they believe, or their genetics believe, that we would have a safer existence, right? Now, looking at healing from that perspective, if you look at when we feel an unease in our body, often when we feel an illness in our body, what we do is we seek an answer outside of us. We either want to connect with a doctor, or we want to take medicine, or go to a healer. Now, when we do this for a short period of time, we create a band-aid, right? It's the cure, we call a cure for a disease, cure for an illness, right? So when we cure that unease that we have in our body, for the moment, we feel like we are healed. But when we talk about in this context, we are not talking about curing. We are talking about true healing. Let me use a metaphor to explain to you what I mean by that. If I invite you to think about the vitality of your life, If I invite you to think about the epitome of your well-being, I invite you to attach the word Shangri-La to that. What is your Shangri-La in your best existence, best state of mind, best state of being? What would that be? What would the journey be like for that specific being? The most compassionate, most peaceful, and most emotional bliss, a space like that. We are talking about a space like that. We are inviting you to Shangri-La, in other words. So for this, we need to work on our root causes. For this, we need to deeply look into our nature. For this, we need to expand our consciousness. And that is when we are able to truly heal. We may have illness come and go, but that doesn't disturb your peace. That doesn't disturb the Shangri-La. So this is the journey is about. So in order for you to do this, then you understand that you have the answers within yourself. And that healing, that journey needs to evolve from within yourself. When we talk about such journeys, then we talk about you becoming your own healer. That's the space we are in. So in other words, I am not your healer. Evolving Temple is not your healer. It's truly you that you become the healer for yourself to reach that space of mind. Right. So as we talk about it, often when we consider psychedelic journeys, often people tend to focus a lot about the hallucinations or the mystical world. And I also would like to mention to all of you that at Evolving Temple, we do not focus on hallucinations or the mystical world. It is one of the important aspects. However, our focus is how do we utilize these mystical elements in a therapeutic setting where we are able to create maximum development for our healers, our self-healers. So I invite you to be in this space where we are looking forward to create value for your current existence, for this life, to live an inspired life and lead an inspired life. Right. So what is healing and development through altered states of consciousness? Now, please forgive me for speaking a lot at the beginning. I think providing a little bit of background to you would be helpful for us to start a conversation. So when we talk about altered states of consciousness, one of the commonest ways that we know we can alter our consciousness is through meditation. And if you look at something a bit different, drinking alcohol or smoking tobacco or marijuana, these are ways of altering our consciousness by ingesting or by smoking something. In other words, bringing a certain substance into our body. Now, this is altering the consciousness by ingesting something or bringing some specific substance into our body. Now, in this experience, we are specifically only talk about psychedelic plant medicines, naturally occurring plant medicine that we can find in the nature. And also the medicines that we are talking about are well researched and approved in developed countries to be used for therapeutic purposes. And we combine three main components in this journey. One is the therapeutical approach to how to intervene with psychedelic in healing and mind development. And the other is, so when we talk about therapeutic benefits, we talk about developmental neuroscience as well as integrative therapies. And then on the other hand side, we use reflection, or if you may be familiar, Vipassana. Vipassana is truly seeing or observation, which is a popular very well received meditation practice, Buddhist meditation practice. Without any religious involvement, we bring Vipassana as a component where we create reflection in our self-healers. And combination with these two, we create the altered states. When we talk about altered states, what we truly mean by that is expansion of consciousness. What is consciousness then? Right, consciousness is something very simple, in fact. Consciousness means awareness, this current awareness that we are in. We are aware of ourselves, our names, The time that seems like a linear process, we are aware of our relationships, all the associations we have created, all that. So the moment we expand consciousness at a state of specific altered state that is created by an outside stimuli, in this case specifically using plant medicine, we are able to create healing and development. So this experience has two specific sides to it. One side is the therapeutic, reflective, as well as the benefits that you derive from the developmental neuroscience, the intervention itself. And then on the other hand side, there are some aspects to this medicine that is mystical. In other words, that we are not able to explain it by science, or the experience is extremely outwardly alien-like. Now, when I say alien-like, if you thought of an alien with big black eyes and green skin, I'm not talking about that alien. That alien is a familiar type of alien, isn't it? It's human constructed alien. I'm not talking about that type of alien world. I'm talking about something that we only can experience at a deeper vibrational level, like meditation or taking a specific plant medicine. All right. So it's truly about when we expand our consciousness and awareness, and when we include it with the therapeutical benefits of psilocybin, we are able to create healing and development. So this is the space that we are operating in. So in this fire circle, we discussed about psychedelic storytelling today. It has already begun a little bit. So let's look at how we reset our brain and reset you, literally. Because I'm going to share with you some of the experiences I have had through my own journey. And we also would like to show you some of the ways how psychedelics impact human brain. And then also, I would like to invite you to a reflective space, a space of Vipassana today, where we will discuss about, are you afraid of fear? Right. Now, let's start at the bottom. This is an introductory conversation. So if you are experienced psychedelic user or a therapist, I invite you to join us and bear with us, right? So when we talk about psychedelic, it comes from the ancient Greek word psyche and delos. So when we say psyche, we are looking at mind or soul, and delos is manifest or visible. So we're talking about here mind manifesting or mind becoming visible. And those who have had psychedelic experience exactly know what I'm talking about, because as we go into the psychedelic experience, especially when the hallucination part begins, if we do not have the right type of preparation and control, we go into a alienish, very colorful sometimes, depending on the situation, we go into a world that is very different. And this is a way of experiencing mind becoming visible. At the same time, we know that usually this space that we are talking about is the recreational space, where we do receive a lot of potentially enjoyable experience for some people, if that is perceived as enjoyable. And so in that space, we create that experience, the hallucinating experience. But when we talk about in terms of healing and mind development, we are talking about taking a specific dosage depending on your body type, creating this ability to where we shut down or really minimize the functions of our default mode network, the part that we are aware that we exist, and then all of a sudden we start to see a different world and different awareness starts to emerge. So we're talking about a deeper experience in terms of incorporating psychedelics. So for today's conversation, we will be focusing on psilocybin, which is a hallucinogenic mushroom, or well known as magic mushrooms. And I'm sharing this information for education and harm reduction purpose only. And so when we talk about psilocybin, let's start the conversation with Roland Griffiths, one of my favorite scientists at Johns Hopkins Medicine. He says, I have come to think of meditation and psilocybin has been complementary process for both investigation of the nature of mind In fact, neuroimaging studies show that they both produce similar changes in brain regions related to sense of self. And he continues to say, well, if meditation represents the true cause of investigation of the mind, psilocybin surely represents the crash course. In other words, I can break it down in the meditator's terms. If you may know, there are professional meditators who meditate 15 to 20 years, and individuals who have meditated such long years and experienced psilocybin in a therapeutic setting confirm that some of them confirm that it's not even possible. They don't even imagine it's possible for them to get that state through meditation. And some individuals say their meditation experience that is worth 20 years, 25 years equal to one dosage of psilocybin. So that's the power of ability to expand consciousness using psychedelic healing plant medicine. Right. So as I said, let's look at it as a healing catalyst. And when we look at it, there is 50% of full remission normal from depression within the 1 month of follow-up in Center for Psychedelics Consciousness Research at Johns Hopkins. And then if you look at the cancer study, and there's about 80% clinically decreased depression and anxiety in cancer patients. As you know, the cancer patients, the more than the physical impact they receive from the cancer, it's the mental impact that affects them the most. And imagine 2.5 grams of psilocybin, magic mushrooms that grows in the wilderness, can cure or can bring them to a state where they find peace in their condition. And then how about healthy adults? Healthy adults find about 90% of the healthy adults who have received one or two dosages of psilocybin confirm that they have about 90% increase in life satisfaction, positive behavior change, including their positive moods and better social relationships. Now, when we talk about this 80% of the individuals who confirm as a result of intake of psilocybin, they receive one of the most personally meaningful spiritual or life experiences in their life. Now, when we say most spiritual or most significant life experiences, we are talking about almost something like a childbirth of in the immediate family or death of someone in the immediate family. We're talking about something deeply close and very closely connected to us personally. So individuals who go through psilocybin experiences confirm, those who go through it in a therapeutic environment confirm that that they receive such powerful realizations and powerful, meaningful experiences. Right. So now I would like to invite you to a space of a little bit of Vipassana. Some of you may be professional coaches or therapists or healers, self-healers, or individuals who are curious about what is this journey is like. So I'm going to invite you to a little bit of a Vipassana reflection, observation reflection, where we look at our somatic awareness, looking at our heart, and then also connecting our heart with unconditional love. Now, before I invite you to this experience, I would like to show you a very short 10 seconds video clip. And in this video clip, you're going to see a couple of surgeons doing an open heart surgery where you actually literally can see the knives, the equipment they use in the surgical environment, as well as the cut open heart beating inside of the body of that particular individual. So if you are sensitive to this kind of material, I invite you to kindly close the window for now. And once I'm done, I will invite all back for now. And if you feel comfortable, I invite you to watch it. And it will begin immediately in the middle. So prepare yourself, brace yourself if you are a sensitive person. If you are a highly sensitive person, I invite you not to watch this video. Right. And now I'm opening my screen and I see many of you join. Thank you very much for being here. And also healers, if you don't mind calling you self-healers. When I share my screen, I do not see you. So thank you for joining us and being here. Right. So here is the little video. Brace yourself. Okay. Sorry if that created any distress in you. Okay, so self-healers, I invite you to a little bit of reflective practice now. So if you join me with the eyes open, closed, that's all good. Let's think of this as a celebration. All right, so let's dive into this. I invite you to look at yourself where you're sitting right now. You have a beautiful imagination. I invite you to watch yourself from above. I invite you to pull yourself out of your body and watch yourself from above. Okay, thank you for making. Okay, great. Right, so I invite you to watch yourself from above, seeing, observation, so directly observe yourself. Then I invite you to think about this moment that you are right here. You could be doing anything else in this world, but you decided to come here. You decided to be present to this moment. What does that truly mean? There is some innate calling that you feel an alignment to be in this moment with us. That alignment is truly the healing and development that we are talking about. So I would like to congratulate all of you for being here. And as you do that, I invite you to pull yourself out of the room that you are in. What kind of building are you in? And pull yourself out of the building. Which city are you in? Pull yourself further up. Which country are you living? Pull yourself further up. Bring yourself into the space, into the universe, and look back at Earth's magnificent blue planet that we live in. And then I invite you to pull yourself deep into the universe and look at our sun as a star. And next to our sun, our solar system, and tiny, tiny, tiny blue earth that you are inside of. As you bring your awareness to your existence in that magnificence, then I invite you back into your body and become aware of your mind, your body, and your emotions. And as we mention the word emotions, I believe that we can create some sensations in our body with emotions. Emotions are the stimuli that we receive in our body, right? So I invite you to focus on your body. Where is a sensation in your body right now? And may I invite you to bring your awareness to your heart. And then if you really look at your heart from the moment you were born to the moment that we end our life, keeps beating. Doesn't matter how angry we become, how we lose it sometimes, how we completely want to disappear into thin air. But it doesn't matter. Our heart keeps beating. Our heart never stops loving us. Even if the heart fails, that means most of the time something else in the body failed. Right? So if you are looking for love, if you're looking for unconditional love, before we look outside, we find it right within inside of us, right in our core, in our heart. We see that unconditional love. Even sometimes when we are unconscious, your heart continues to beat, continues to love. And I also invite you to think of your heart now being in your hand, in your imagination, as if the beating heart is right on your hand, it's beating. What does it feel like to hold your hand, hold your heart in your hand? What kind of texture would your heart have? How heavy would your heart be like in your palm? How heavy would your heart be? How would you feel about that vigorous beating that we just saw a second ago? If it was on your, if your heart was on your hands, how would you feel it? And then I invite you to bring your hands to your heart and place your heart inside of your body, between your ribs, between your lungs, protected, beautifully protected. Our body outside symmetrical, inside asymmetrical. What a magnificent creation. What a beautiful creation. And the heart is a little bit to the left. How beautiful is that? And then I invite you to think about your heart more like a musical instrument, not how it is represented biologically. I invite you to think about your heart like a harp that can create music when you run your fingers through the strings of the harp, like a musical instrument. When you are ecstatic, what kind of music does your heart play? When you're extremely happy, what kind of music does your heart play? When you're lonely, when you're sad, when you are frustrated, what kind of music does your heart play? I invite you to think about your heart as a musical instrument and listen to the music it plays and listen to the unconditional love that it can play. And at this point, I invite you to think, how often do you bring this awareness, the music that your heart plays, the unconditional love that your heart shares with you? How often do you bring your awareness to this? So with that, I invite you, if you feel this reflection is creating value for you, I invite you to remember your beating heart and bring your awareness on a regular basis, remembering that we are magnificent human beings. You as an individual, you have a magnificent body, amazing mind. And I invite you to remind yourself that on a regular basis. Bring more love and life into yourself, right? And as we do that, I invite you back to this room. May I invite few of you to share with us? How do you feel right now? And what kind of energy are you experiencing?
I can share. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
I really needed that today, just to start off by saying that, because of feeling like a buzzing energy of being very, active and busy. And after that, I feel very grounded right now, actually. I have my feet very strongly on the floor. And again, this is the second time this week that I've brought awareness to my heart, and I can feel, when I pay attention to it, I can feel it bzz, 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 all through my fingertips, my knees, my shoulders, the top of my head, the tips of my toes. I can just feel like the pulsing going outwards. And then it started to make me think how much energy is created by just the pulsing of all of our hearts on the whole planet. It's so, so beautiful if you really think about that power just going. And as today that we've just surpassed 8 billion people on the planet. That's 8 billion hearts beating all at the same time. It's so intense. It's so intense. So thank you for that experience.
How wonderful is that thought, Jess? And may I also add then, what if we included all the animals, all the beings? Oh my God, trillions of hearts beating on Earth right now. How beautiful is that? How magnificent is that? Yeah, beautiful. Anyone else?
I wanted to share that for the first time, I've never tried taking my heart into my head. And actually, the physical sensations were very like distinct. It felt differently. It felt like, and I was wondering, oh, you always say like you live either in your head or from your heart. So what if indeed remembering not only to check in with your heart, but also kind of like connect them is a trick which would help. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsa. I think that's the whole point. So in this space, that when we talk about invitation to your emotional Shangri-La, emotional bliss, we are talking about becoming aware, being in the current moment and being in the present moment. So this kind of observation helps us to remember who we truly are at a deeper level, and truly bringing the beauty or the love, truly the love that we have within us, and remembering that, or keeping that as a golden thread in every moment of our life, because we know, we hear all the time, we only have this moment, we only have this awareness that this is possible for all of us, right? So in that context, I invite you to think, what if we can always surface that love as much as possible? How is that going to change our life? Right. So as we are going to dive into our next experience, I am going to share with you a psychedelic story. I'm going to tell you one of my experiences under psilocybin, right? So in order for you to join me in this story, it is important that you try and understand, or you get a feeling of what is it truly to be under psilocybin. Of course, we can't create that environment here, but I can give you a feeling of it just by using this pencil, right? Now, when you look at this pencil, if I invite you to be a super observer, if I invite you to become observation itself, right? If you become a super observer, what would this pen, how would you associate this pen? Would love to hear some of your thoughts. Ankush, Varun, Shafia, Imali, throw some ideas. When you look at this pen, if you're a super observer, your observation itself, what is it?
It's like matter or plastic, or
it could be matter. Please.
Or like, also like, I've been watching these YouTubes that they say everything is consciousness and everything. So I just want to say like everything is like consciousness. So even the pen is like something like that. I don't know what that means, but that's like you keep saying on YouTube.
I just love both of your answers. Everything is consciousness. That's a very wise answer. It's a very easy answer to get away with from anything. Yeah, indeed. Everything is consciousness, right? Awareness. Everything is awareness. We are aware that this exists. So in that sense, it is consciousness, right? I am more interested in your previous answer, which is matter, right? Even consciousness, in fact. Now, if we let's say, I think matter is a good answer. Well, one would say molecules, one would say it's like plastic or wood in this case, right? However, if you really truly think of becoming a super observer, matter is a good answer. At the same time, you realize that matter is something that you knew already, which means matter is an association that you already know, a concept. So it's You are relating a concept to the pen. When you said, I don't know what it means, it could be consciousness, that's exactly what is happening, right? It's looking at an association, preconceived ideas, and projecting it to this object. But if I told you, if without any association, if you would look at this, what would that be then?
It's a conduit to transfer your thoughts onto paper.
The function of it.
The function.
Function. Association, isn't it? Still association.
It's still an association, right?
Ankush.
Well,
Yes.
Come forward. I thought you were about to share something.
Oh no. Yeah, that was it. I was thinking as more of it as a functionality, like yeah, like your thoughts and your ideas. If you wanted to translate them into something material and etch them, onto paper or transcribe them. So that is basically the conduit for like a medium to translate your thoughts.
Brilliant, great idea. And we clearly still see associations there, right?
It's still an association.
Right? Yeah, not a true observation. Great. There don't need to be any right or wrong answers. This is a reflective space. So we generate ideas and then we are comfortable with them being right or wrong. In fact, there is no such thing as right or wrong. And that's something we learned through psychedelics. Right. Imali, did you mean to share something with us?
For me, it's got a starting point and an end point. I guess still associated, but if I remove the fact that it's potential and I know it, then it's just like starting point and an end point.
Yeah, couldn't hear you fully, but I clearly hear there's a starting point and end point. That is very true as well. Now, let me help all of you to become your super observer with an analogy. Let's see if the things will shift after that. Now, I still invite you to observe this pencil. This time, I'm going to invite you to a different space. I told you super observer. We actually can imagine a super observer. You know how? I invite you to think about yourself coming to existence just right at this point of time. Just now, you come to existence. So you have a fresh brain, developed brain at the same level, but there are no conditions. There are no associations. Imagine your body and mind just came into existence just right now, miraculously. Then, if I put this in front of your face and ask you, what is this? What would happen to you now?
You just observe the physical appearance of the item. So I would probably say this is a stick of some sort that has a sharp end. And at one end it looks darker. It looks dark. And at the other end it's soft and I don't know, soft. Yeah. And
Right.
just
Yeah.
probably what it feels like in my hands. Yeah.
Ah, right. Now there's more elements with how it feels in the hand, right? That's an interesting, important point. Thank you, Shafia. Any other thoughts?
I have heard like this presence guy, the Eckhart Tolle guy, say that it's that everything is we put labels on stuff and we're always trying to like classify everything, but then to actually like, again, I've heard somebody like say these words on YouTube, but I don't know if I can actually like experience that. But yeah, they say that if but there's no way to actually put words on like the actual experience, but that as a way to sort of like cope and operate in the world, then we have to say this is salt, this is a computer, this is and then classify and put things in boxes and things just to sort of do that. But then everything that like there's no like separation between things and all this is like non-duality kind of thing and all that. So I've just heard all of this vaguely on YouTube. And then another thought that came to mind is like, if a baby, you said if our mind just comes right now into the world, then I guess it would be like babies. And I see that, you know, babies are always amazed with everything, but then they're learning and they're trying to grasp what it is. And then I guess through conditioning, then they learn, okay, this is a pencil, this is a pen, this is a plant. And it's like a word, but it doesn't like actually describe the object, right?
Absolutely, Varun. Now we are heading in the right direction. Beautiful, beautiful sharing. Yeah.
I've heard this, but I don't know if I think of it properly or like correctly, or if I actually experience it, or if it's still just like a concept, you know?
Okay, I'm going to pick up one of the sentences that you said. You said we may not be able to see a separation. Let's begin there. Now, when we started describing this as a shape or a pencil, a medium to put down something, it was always an association of a preconception, right? However, when you try to look at this as a baby, actually, as soon as a baby is born, if you put this in front of the baby would not know the difference between my finger and the pencil. Since the baby hasn't learned the distance yet, the baby probably wouldn't be able to realize that I'm wearing a shirt or I have a head or anything like that, right? So all of a sudden, you become a super observer. In other words, you don't even have a vocabulary to identify anything. You don't have any associations to reference. You don't have a reference point whatsoever. Now, why am I going around and around with this? It's important. This is the space of ego death. In other words, this is the deep state of psychedelic induction or application where you are able to come to understand certain realities about who we truly are and this existence from a space of super observer. So I would like to bring to your awareness that when you go into a psychedelic experience and when you have taken the right dosage based on your body weight and the setting and the set that you have been prepared for therapeutically, you are able to get to a space that you can look at the world yourself with no reference point. What would that be like? Can you imagine for a second? If you had no reference point, in other words, if you had no reference point to yourself, who you are, if you looked at the mirror, what do you think you would see? If you absolutely had no reference point to who you truly are, if you look at the mirror in such state, who would you be like? Do you think it will make any sense? So here I begin my journey. I would like to share with you one of my psychedelic experiences. So this is a dosage which enables me to go into this deep awareness state, often which we called ego death. I'm going to explain to you what ego death in a minute because I understand that some of you are absolutely new to this space. Now, in one of these experiences, in a therapeutic setting, we invite individuals to face the mirror. If you are studying about psychedelics on YouTube and some not necessarily official material, you will often see that people say, don't look at the mirror, don't look at the mirror. It's because the mirror works as a very beautiful reflection on you and you start to hallucinate. Or in other words, you start to see things that you don't usually see in your normal state, which we comfortably call hallucinations. Right? Which we very comfortably call hallucinations because in the normal states, we don't see these things, right? Now, when I say these things, I would like to bring you an example what these things are, right? In order for me to do this, I will explain to you the experience. So I took the hero dose, which is a stronger dose in a therapeutic setting. And then when so when you go into a psychedelic application or a ceremony, there are stages within the experience that you are aware, if you were prepared therapeutically in advance, how to associate yourself in that space, how to actually operate in that space. So when I was reaching that specific state where I was supposed to come and sit at the mirror, And I decided I was wearing very like only my undergarments because I was preparing for this experience. I wanted to see myself in front of the mirror. So as I was entering this deep state, I stood up. And so in other words, now when I say I stand up, it's not a paralyzed state when you're under, especially psilocybin, which is that we're talking about right now. You are able to actually still process around the world around you. So I stand up, I can't come in front of the mirror. I believe if I am to show you what it looked like from that perspective, it is quite distorting. The only way that I can show it to you is by showing you this image. Now, when you look at this image, you see that it's still familiar. You see an eye, you see eyebrows, you see the nose, you see a mouth, you see hair, you see ears, you see pretty much everything in the human body, right? But how they are placed is different. And that is kind of distorting your mind. Would you agree with me? And I must mention that you're looking at a beautiful, gorgeous female whose body has been altered into this using digital manipulation software, right? Now, this is quite a bearable sight. But when I came in front of the mirror with no reference point, self-healers, that was a very different experience, because you don't know in that state that your eyes need to be spread across your face. In that state, I do not remember that my nose need to be in the middle of my face. I don't remember my mouth need to be underneath my nose. So in other words, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I wasn't afraid, because that's not a state that you feel emotions in that sense, because it was a deep unaware. You don't feel afraid in that state. Actually, you feel rather very powerful in that state. So when I was looking at myself in the mirror, I had no idea it was me. There was an observation present to whatever that was in front of me. It was a mirror. I didn't realize it at that time. It took me a few seconds. Now, when I looked at myself, I saw somewhat a hairy animal who had two things like this, who had one thing like this, and who had a body, and very relaxed state, like my shoulders, my stomach was fully out, and I was hunched back like that and looking at myself. And I wasn't able to recognize myself as Fernando or a human being or anything like that. I was starstruck. Something living. It looks like something living. Oh, did I feel attracted to myself? Did I feel that I'm good looking or bad looking? No. Did I usually, when you look at another human being, there's some kind of like a sexual attraction, there's some kind of a feeling associated, there's all that happens to you when you look at a person. But in this state, there was nothing as such. I just see a being staring at me, as confused as how I started to feel. So I was looking at myself and not being able to recognize. It was about a few seconds, 5-6 seconds. I regained the awareness of this is me. I was just looking at myself. And at that moment, it hit me. It hit me that when I have been looking at myself from this reference point as a human being, as Fernando, I always used to see a familiar face, a familiar alignment of our body. Now, I invite you to think all of us, all this time through the evolutionary process, what if our hand was coming out of our forehead? And we would be doing like this, like an elephant, right? And we would feel absolutely normal about it, right? Because that's what we know as who we are, right? So the moment I looked at myself in the mirror, I realized I looked at myself as a just observation. I am not that guy, Fernando, that I thought very important, that all that, the ego connection, right? So now let's go deeper a little bit. Now, why am I telling this story with you? How did I develop from this, right? That's what's most important. So let me invite you to a space of sharing with you what this means to a therapist who is working in the psychedelic space. When this happened, I would like to share with you that in psychedelic intervention, creating altered states, we use 3 protocols in preparing our self-healers. It's called preparation protocol, psilocybin application protocol, and developmental integration protocol. We have 3 protocols. Preparation is ground setting. Think about psychedelic experiences almost like diving deep into a sea. It is possible, yet it's a space that is unknown to us. So we need to have the right gear. We need to know how to behave inside. We need to know how to swim. We need to learn the techniques, and we need to have the right gear for that. And then we also do it for a purpose. So it requires for us to prepare. Why are we doing this experience? How do we like to develop or heal from this experience? Right? For this purpose, we prepare our self-healers. And then we invite them to a good either 6 or 10 hours of psychedelic ceremony. In other words, application of psilocybin, where they go into this deep state after preparing really very well. And then once they go through that experience, once they receive all the learning, we invite them to a space of integration. In other words, making sense. What does that really mean? Remember the previous slide? So I saw this. Now, how does this, what I saw, make sense to me and created healing and development in me? So I'm going to show you how preparation, application, and integration guided me through this journey. Right, so let's look at the preparation part. How does psilocybin really interact with our brain? Psilocybin is a compound that is very similar to the serotonin molecule that we are talking about, right? Serotonin, which is responsible for us to feel good. Now, psilocybin, when it is digested in our body, breaks down to psilocin. Psilocin is actually the compound that is very similar to the serotonin molecule, because the serotonin receptors are able to receive psilocin perfectly. So once our brain is accepting psilocin, what happens to our brain is, interestingly, we have these specific regions in our brain. When we combine them, we call it default mode network. Now, the red areas that you see in our brain is the collection of different areas that is responsible for our awareness, sense of self, that you remember your name, you remember your surroundings, time, relationships, associations, all that. Now, under psilocybin, under the influence of psilocybin in our brain, these regions start to function low, almost to the level, almost doesn't function. This is what we call ego death or mystical experience. So when we look at it chemically, it's a naturally occurring plant medicine, which is the safest substance categorized as psychedelic drugs, the safest one. It's safer than alcohol, it's safer than nicotine, it's safer than marijuana, the safest one in the drug category. I invite you to look at the UK drug classifications website, and you will see that magic mushrooms or psilocybin is listed at the very bottom as the least harmful substance for human beings. So this substance numbs this specific area which we call default mode network. When that happens, our cortexes start to connect with each other directly, right? Our cortexes, which are responsible for our language, our hearing, taste, our balance, visuals, all that, they start connecting directly. So now, before we go into the experience, we have come to understand through the preparation process that when the brain connects such, we experience something called hallucination. Or in other words, we are able to perceive, experience things in a way that we were not able to experience in a normal sense. And I believe one of the reasons why there is fear and stigma surrounded in this space, especially psychedelics, is because individuals are unaware. There is no education before they experience it. So they do not understand what happens during that experience, so that it could trigger fear or feelings of distress. So that is why often psychedelics are associated as a harmful substance. However, if you do it in a therapeutic session space, and if you're prepared, you have a better understanding how to maximize the opportunity that you have with this plant medicine. So now what happens is our brain starts connecting all of a sudden in a way that it never connected before. All of a sudden, the limitations that we had in our senses, we had in our body, all of a sudden broken down. So you may have heard people saying, I was able to see music. I was able to taste a color, right? You see, our cortexes are starting to act in a special way in this space to a level that it brings us to a space that we call ego death or mystical experience, which is not even possible to be explained in scientific terms. Right. So now with this awareness, I have come to understand that my default mode network is going to slow down, and I may not be able to recognize myself when I look at myself in the mirror. So when you go into the experience with that awareness and preparation, you know how to navigate through that experience. And you're also not alone. You're working with your therapist or your psychedelic interventionist or the therapist, right? Or the guide, so that you have support with you. So when you're in this space, all of a sudden you enter a space that is related to the application, which means that when you have ingested psilocybin, magic mushroom, if you're wondering how do we intake it, we make a cup of tea with about between 1.5 to 2.5 grams, depending on the body weight of you and your preparation while you're doing the experience. You make a tea and then you drink it. It's very simple. Right. What happens after taking this? So now we were talking about cortex are connecting. If you look at the two outer circles of this, outer layers of these circles, you see that there are different colors associated. Now, these colors are made for a reason. Imagine of them as cortexes. Now, when you look at diagram A, that is our placebo brain. In other words, brain with no psilocybin or taken a substance thinking it is psilocybin. And then the other diagram that you see is actually the brain connections under an MRI machine, how we see as an illustration, as an accurate infographic. Right, so you obviously then start to see that our cortexes, in other words, our brain start connecting more rapidly in several more times than our brain would ever connect in a normal conscious setting. So that's what psilocybin truly does. So through the application, we start to experience that deeper connection, and that is why we actually reveal our mind in a way and enter a space that we are able to make more sense. It's pretty simple, straightforward. If we have more brain connections, we are able to process more. We are able to comprehend more. We are able to actualize more. We are able to become aware more. So this is a scientific explanation to what happens in our brain when we have ingested psilocybin. Right. So we are starting to see the connections now. So when I saw that image of myself like another animal looking back at me in the same amount of confusion, was because I wasn't present to myself as Fernando, or I was coming from no reference point. I had no idea in that few seconds that how a human should look like. So I had the opportunity to look at myself absolutely from an outside perspective for the first time in my life. And I must say that it changed my life at that moment. Right. So we understand that the cortex is connected directly. And this experience, as you enter this deep state of awareness, we call it mystical experience or ego death. Now, if we connect the dots, we understand that ego death truly means then the self-awareness part in our brain not becoming very less functional and allowing our brain, right, allowing our mind to fully become what it is without the addition of our default mode network or the sense of self, right? This is what we call mystical experience. And this is the space that you receive extremely deeply meaningful realizations, awareness, and then you also bring it to the next level, which I would like to talk to you about in the preparation. Right. integration. Right. So as we continue to integration, what happens? As I went through this experience, I was given the ability to recognize myself as just a being, or I would even say a living creature outside of my body. So when I looked at myself that way, I also at the same time thought about other animals I know. I thought about, how about a cow? How about a cat? How about an insect? How about? Then I realized that if I had no reference point, I would not see any separation in what is out there. I would see it as earth. I would recognize it as a collective entity, earth. And I realized that ability to be present, ability to be observing it, I started to realize that I am also part of that big, beautiful momentum, all the hearts that's beating. So it grounded me, it made me, for a moment, disengage my ego and not feel so important as such. And also, as I started regaining my awareness, I looked at myself. There was no connotation to how we are sexually driven. Although you may say that we don't look at ourselves sexually, we absolutely do look at ourselves sexually. There's a certain amount of sexual attraction within human beings to ourselves. I did not see that connection. I did not see all the hardships I have endured to be in this moment. I just looked at myself for the real who I am without any reference point. All of a sudden, I realized I am just another being roaming in this earth, and I'm calling myself this advanced person because we call that we are fully developed human beings, and we have thought that we are the superior being on this planet. And I all of a sudden realized, not necessarily. It's just my mind plays games with me because I feel self-importance. And from that moment, I was able to separate emotions. I was able to separate my body from my bones, from my muscles, from my nervous system, because I had that clarity in front of me that if you look at yourself, you are just really a living, moving earth. It's a beautiful concept, right? That gave me a huge opportunity to look at myself from a very different perspective. Now, when we talk about coaching and therapy space, we invite our clients to look at things from a different perspective. And here, what happens is, as a self-healer, when you go through this journey, you create such awareness for yourself, being able to become a super observer. I'm not necessarily saying that all of us have to take psilocybin and go in front of the mirror. It depends on what procedure you have to go through for what reason. But what I'm really trying to say here is that in this space, you're able to create perspectives from no reference, or a reference that you are not so attached to yourself. So when you do that, your awareness about that reality is completely different from how you look at it from this body that we live in, this mind that we live in. So I would like to call this actualized awareness. So through the preparation process, integration process, once you go through that experience and you step out the experience, either you do self-reflection or you work with your guide, someone experienced, to bring out that awareness and create actualized awareness. So I would like to share with you that when we talk about awareness, awareness is knowing something. We are aware of it. However, when we combine awareness with expansion of consciousness integrated, this integration create actualized awareness. I know that you do not understand what I'm talking about if you haven't undergone a psychedelic experience. If you have had an ego death, insightful experience, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. However, I would like to explain to you using an analogy. If you are new to this space, think of you explaining to an individual, human being, of the taste of a mango. This person has never eaten a mango. You're trying to describe the taste of the best mango that you have ever eaten to that individual, right? So this is an awareness you are creating with that person. The person say, oh, it must be very tasty. The yellow color, the fragrance, right? You can try a lot of different ways of explaining it. But we know that if this person hasn't eaten a mango, that person doesn't necessarily fully understand, fully comprehend what a mango is. So this is what you're talking about. The moment you give that person a mango, that person fully comprehend what it is. So this is here actualized awareness. We understand certain concepts about life. We understand about God, we understand about divinity, we understand about existence, we understand about why we do what we do. However, when you are able to create a deeper altered state and expand your consciousness and re-look at that awareness, all of a sudden, because your brain has opened up, like we discussed earlier a second ago, because our brain connections are deeply involved in the whole process that is happening, and also a space that we call mystical experience, it is possible for us to create an actualized awareness in which, when we walk away from that, it has become a truth. I'm not saying the truth. I'm saying it becomes a truth. You come to understand something in an actualized manner. And for me, it's becoming a truth that you're unable to ever leave again. That understanding sits with you like as if your bones cracked, it becomes part of you. It becomes an embodiment of you, your awareness. So this is the beauty of integration, and that's why integration is absolutely very important. It's because we are our focus is very narrow. We are very short-sighted, whether we like it or not, in a conscious environment, right? So when we are able to expand our consciousness, bring in the awareness, we actualize that. And I would like to say the healing and development aspect of an experience like this. So it begins with your mind, revealing of your mind, experiencing your mind in an altered state, in a safe therapeutic setting, where you open your mind to a space that you allow your cortexes to connect in such a way that not just only you come out with an actualized awareness now, but you start to create healing and development, some of it consciously, some of it, hear me out, unconsciously, and some of it with the deliberate conscious effort. Now, let me give an example of unconsciously healing. I used to have a glass of something every evening, a few years ago, every evening. And that became a dependency at some point, right? And when I went through my psychedelic experience, I woke up next morning and I asked myself, oh, feeling great. Why? You're not supposed to feel like this. Then it hit me, oh, you did the psychedelic therapy session yesterday. That's why. And then I felt this drive to go to the gym, and I felt this drive to meditate, which usually doesn't happen, which I had to force myself in my deepest honesty. And then I went to the gym, I did the meditation a different day. Day 2, day 3, day 4, and by now there is no psilocybin in my body anymore. Day 5, day 6, day 7, I feel exactly the same way. So then on the day 7, while I was sitting on the bed, having this urge to go use the gym, go to my meditation, and then to begin a fruitful day, all of a sudden it hit me and I realized, so this must be how it is to be normal. In other words, I understood or realized that I must have been in depression all my life for whatever the reasons. And when I went through this experience, it reset my brain in a way that I become now to that numbers that I was talking about earlier, the revision to normal life. So I found out that I was depressed. I was experiencing some kind of mental heaviness in me. Although I come from an integrated therapy background, I didn't even realize that, because for me, it was normal life, I thought. I thought that's how everyone feels. And one day I found out otherwise. So now that is one of the unconscious healing. Of course, then I made a conscious effort. At the time, I was 10 kilos heavier. And then all of a sudden, my eating habits started to shift. I knew exactly when to start and when not to start, not to eat, and when to stop, how much to eat. All of that was like my body created that awareness in within me. Like my intuition was piled up, immediately elevated. So when those changes happen in our mind as a result of altered states, we start to heal and developmentally. And I say this with very confidence because it has happened to me. It has happened to the person I love the most, my sister. And it is happening to many individual self-healers who go through this journey. I'm not saying with Evolving Temple, I'm saying individuals around the world with a lot of therapies and guides and the self-guidance, people are creating this amazing healing and development for themselves. Emotions, you heal emotions, you start to heal through your emotions. And we sometimes don't even know that there's a lot of emotional healing that is necessary in each and every one of us. We only act upon healing, thinking that we are healing when we have a disease, when we have illness, and then we cure it and we go like, healed. Now, that is not true healing. If you're talking about true healing, we are talking about true emotional healing, which means that you operate in a space when the ground underneath your feet shake. Yourself, you stay strong like mountain ranges because you have created emotional bliss that internally you know how to react to emotions or how not to react, to become an observer. And that is a possibility. It is not a permanent state. It is constant maintenance, like this, everything in this 3D world. But it gets better, it becomes easier. And it creates physical changes in your body because you crack all your mind muscles. You change your intuition, you put your energy in the right places, which brings me to energy. You start to recognize that your heart, when you deeply listen to yourself through Vipassana, you start to realize that you thought your heart is inside of your body. Yes, it is. However, if you pay enough attention to your body, your heart has layers of existence, planes of existence that through Vipassana, if you focus deep enough through certain altered states, that you can experience them. So you start to energetically crack your bonds and start to stabilize yourself. And so you become spiritually, peacefully, you become more peaceful, you become more content. I am not a fan of using the word spiritual in isolation like this, because I believe that we are not necessarily, that we have a spiritual way of becoming spiritual. I believe that we are spiritual beings from the moment that we arrived in this beautiful, beautiful Mother Earth. We begin our spiritual journey immediately. And it doesn't matter how bad we felt, it doesn't matter how embarrassed we were, it doesn't matter how angry you were. I believe that it's always spiritual because you're spiritual beings. Right, at this point of time, I'm going to invite you to a short reflection before we end. Before that, I would love to hear from you. How are you feeling right now? Would you like to share a word of how you feel? Or if you would like to elaborate it a little bit, that would be great. Let's go around the room. Let's do shout out how I feel. Jess, let's start.
Just one word.
And then elaborate, please.
I'm actually feeling quite emotional right now because I've been, in this space for a little while and been able to reflect on some things that have been coming up lately. And just now I was reminded of a memory. A memory just came up for me of one of my psilocybin sessions, maybe about 15 years ago. And it just all of a sudden reappeared in my mind. And I actually got a little quite teary-eyed, just realizing how all aspects of my life have been so deeply impacted by those sessions in the last 17 years of my life, and particularly this one that just popped up. So I'm feeling quite emotional, but also so open. And again, my feet are still flat on the ground from the time we started session to now, and just feeling really, really inspired and grateful.
Thank you, Jess. Who else would like to go? Self-healers, who would like to go?
I could. Hello to everyone. Very nice approach and the presentation. I feel very intimacy with all of these. And this is my approach to my well-being, and I try to do this to my clients too. And yes, it's my idea about how this could go on professionally to people. Thank you for this calling.
Thank you, Irene, for joining us.
Maybe I have some questions technically, because I had a little noise here, but it's not the matter right now. Maybe later or to another session. Thank you again.
Thank you, Irene. Feel free to shoot out the questions and I will send you an email soon. Yeah, thank you. Any other sharing? Any other insights?
I can share. I feel emotional bliss. One of the reasons is now, as some of you know, I used to suffer from social anxiety since a baby. And so every time I have to speak up in front of a group of people, whether it's in person or camera, I can feel my heart in my mouth. And right now, when Fernando said, okay, let's go around the room, the first thing is that reaction, body reaction, but now we are talking about emotional awareness and emotional bliss. I can see that myself observing what is happening in my body and not having an emotional attachment to it. And if it's another time, I would feel like, oh my God, now I have to speak, I have this, I have that, all those stories. So I feel peaceful. I feel so much at peace right now.
Thank you, Lux. So speaking of healing, right? And then also Imali is experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties, but she's sharing to look, see, and understand something beyond assumptions is wisdom. It helps us live outside the box all the time. Actually living like there is no box at all. What a beautiful saying, Imali. Thank you. Any other insights? Okay, in that case, I will invite you to this next space very quickly, and as the part of the ending of this conversation, and I will try and finish exactly in time. And if any of you would like to stay back and share some of your insights, I invite you to stay back. But if you have to leave, that's perfectly all right, and understand. Right. So this is, are you afraid of fear? It's almost like playing with words. Are you afraid of fear? So I invite you to this little space. Let's think about it as a celebration. If you'd like to close your eyes, feel free to do that. This is just a reflection. If not, it's all right. Right. So let's think about the baby that earlier was mentioned in this space. We were told when a baby is born, the baby is unaware what is going on. I invite you to go back in time and think about you as a baby. Right? When you were born to this world, you as a baby. So in this Vipassana or the observation practice, reflection, I invite you to be inside of your beautiful mind and then create, be the creator you are. And let your mind take you to places. Let the imagination take you to places. And when a baby is born, mothers say that the baby find out all of a sudden right in front of their face, there's a hand. They touch it with the other hand. And all of a sudden they become aware, oh, I have a hand. And they start to realize that, oh, I can touch, I have a body. You, one day, the first day that happened to you. And then a few days later, as you grow up, first time you get little cut in your body, or you get hit by something. You start to see the pain, or you start to feel hungry, right? Or you feel a little pain in some part of your body as a little child, right? And then you start to cry. So in fear, the pain is introduced to you for the first time, right? As a baby growing up. So you start to realize that in this world, if you want to survive in this world, you need to be able to feel pain. Like I mentioned at the beginning, right? You have to feel the pain. Now, with the pain comes a set of interesting emotions. The leading emotion here is the fear. So we are starting to realize that then if you have become aware or possible in this three-dimensional Mother Earth, beautiful blue paradise that we live in, if you are to live on this planet, it is a necessity that you have to feel pain so that you can survive. If you removed all the pain from your body, I bet you will die in a few minutes. Why? Because you don't know what pain means. You'll just hit yourself around. There's no protection mechanism, right? You will just step outside an 8th-floor building, 20th-floor building, because you don't understand what fear means, right? So now we understand that for survival, fear is a necessity. Pain is a necessity. So with that, emotions are a necessity, right? Because if there were no emotions, there are no physiological sensations, then there are no feelings. And if that's the space we live in, we will lose ourselves quickly. Now with that, then we start to learn the fear, and then we get hurt by things people say, and people say rude things to each other. People do things that are not necessarily pleasant to each other. And then we start to learn more emotions like hatred, anger, and then we reproject them back at those people. We project anger back at people. We project jealousy at people, right? We start creating more fear. The more fear we create, the more suffering we create for ourselves. So what happened to us as human beings? So-called these developed human beings. We realized, no, we did not realize that fear is a necessity for us to be able to survive in this universe, this three-dimensional universe, so that we can actually unlearn fear from the moment we realize that fear is a necessity for us to survive. So we learn some defense mechanisms, we learn how to defend ourselves. After that, we start to turn to love. Now, when I say love, love has a connotation to fear, isn't it? Now, survive. The word survive is interesting. Why? When we say survive, survive is bringing ourselves to an optimum level, right? Always optimum level. The best way that we can feel and be optimum level. We feel okay, we feel neutral, and we feel good, or we feel healthy. An optimum level. If you noticed, our body, our mind keep working, getting ourselves to an optimum self all the time, if you noticed. And that is why there's a pain, you recognize it, and then you try to heal, try to move away from that, because you are reaching out for that optimum conditions. If you notice, optimum conditions, if our heart is beating, if our body is working in the optimum condition, that means we are fully aligned with love. We are fully aligned with why fear exists. Fear exists to keep us in balance. To keep this balance, we need to focus on love. So then we start to realize, actually, fear is the other side of the coin. Fear is necessary for pain. Pain is necessary for our survival. And our survival is always trying hard to keep us in balance, which means keep us in love. Right. So then I invite you, why do you have to be afraid of fear? If we are able to recognize fear as a necessity for our survival, our loving process, as human beings that aware ourselves, we are able to remember that, oh, fear is a necessity for love. So in other words, fear is the driver of love. If there was no fear, there's not going to be love. You see the duality of the world, right? Psychedelic experiences bring you to actualize such realizations and make them permanent in your thoughts. So now I invite you, from this moment, how are you going to look at fear? As you look at fear, are you going to also notice love? And I invite you, how does this awareness, this thinking process, this reflection empower you, heal and develop you from this moment with this beautiful energy that we have created? And thank you. I invite everyone back to this room when you're ready. And I would love to hear from some of you, any of your thoughts, insights as we go through this experience. So the invitation is, how are you feeling right now? What are your key takeaways from this fire circle?
Fernando, I want to say one thing, that what you just said, that fear is the driver of love. And because just today, I was able to speak with a student about, he said, oh, I'm writing something violent. I hope that's okay. And I said, hey, if we didn't have violent, we wouldn't have non-violent. If we didn't have good, we wouldn't have bad. And I said, it's all about context, how we're using it, and if you're being violent yourself or not. And now I was just picturing fear as the other side of the coin of love. And what you said, fear is the driver of love. But I also want to look at fear now as the reminder to search for the love, to find the love in something, to go towards that side of the coin. Fear is just a kind of a biological trigger for us to find the relief of the fear in a way. Not that fear is bad. It's not bad. It's there to protect us. But when you're in a state of fear, or you are afraid of the fear, you're not functioning necessarily at your most optimal form of living. Because at the end of the day, I mean, for me, it all comes back to love. Also, love of self, love of others, love of nature, love of everything. Like, what a peaceful place to come from, rather than the fear part. But the fear needs to be there in order to know the love part too. So thank you for that.
Open to all of you self-healers.
If I may. So the question is, how am I feeling right now? I would say similar to Jess, emotional, grateful, and hopeful. Yeah, it's been a rough couple of years, and somehow it felt like I've lost and found myself and lost myself again. So I'm extremely grateful to be a part of a circle. Like, I think it came at the right point in my life, and I'm hopeful that I can find myself again and find that self-love for myself again. So yeah, thank you guys.
Wonderful, Ankush. I think it's a journey. Finding ourselves is a journey, isn't it? So wonderful to hear that. Yeah, great.
For me, I apologize because at the beginning of the session, I didn't truly pay attention because at that moment still have something to get done. And for me, for the journey of life, fear is really for me so important component, because when we fear to be poor, then we will work hard and work the best for our life. When we fear of losing someone, then we will appreciate too much and we will value them, try the best not to lose them. When we fear our time, then we will appreciate the time and not wasting for something that is really not useful. So, when yesterday I meet with my senior high school student, like we never met each other almost 12 years. And then we try to talk about when we were still young, and then now time flies and we fear to be old, because when we're getting old, everything can change. We become weaker, we become cannot travel a lot, and some people fear of to be lonely. For me, but fear overall is really, really so good, because of fear something, then we will do the best to prevent it. Some people, when they don't really understand, don't really have the good education, maybe they don't fear anything, they will brave to do anything. But when people have enough understanding, they will think we must fear something. We must have the protection of thought about something in life, because many things is somehow, if we're not planning, it's will gonna be out of control. If we have the planning for everything because we fear, then we know how to handle. We know the decision we should do, what we should not do. And overall, I'm so happy because I'm also, when I'm in Indonesia, I make the decision coming to Thailand. I fear, what will I do here? Now I feel quite satisfied because in life, everything white and black must balance. It's like the Chinese idiom, yin yang. So people who live just the white life, like never do anything wrong in life feels so boring. But if people do too much dark life, they will never see the light, and they will always feel afraid of doing something good, and the life will be very useless if people only get involved too much to the dark life. So everything for me, I think fear is very important, and the most important we must fear is the God. It is even no one see, we must still do the good because God always see with us and beside us. This is the fear of God is the number important.
Yeah,
thank you.
Wonderful, George. Thank you very much. Very inspiring sharing, right? Embrace good and bad both. And we also have a sharing coming from Imali. What do we do with fear is really important, whether get rid of it, reject it, eliminate it, avoid it, conflict with it. It will help us to deal with it better. Our natural response is a learned behavior. Very interesting sharing, Imali. Thank you. Yes, Jess?
I just want to make a response to George's statement about all the things that he listed out that we fear as using it as motivation. But one thing you did say, George, is the fear of getting old, right? The fear of the inevitable. And I think that's where like psilocybin therapy really steps in, because fear of the inevitable is just you have to accept, right? You have to find the acceptance in the inevitable things that happen in our lives. And I think that's where all of the experiences through psilocybin sessions for myself has brought me to like this level of acceptance for any problem, anything that's inevitable in life. It's about accepting it. And I just thought it was interesting going through that list that George was going through. Like, okay, I heard him like, yeah, fear of being poor, it's a motivation to make money. Fear of losing someone, appreciate them. Fear of time, make the precious time. But then it got to that fear of getting old, and then my brain was like, wait a minute, that's something that we can't it's not like you can use the fear of getting old to stay alive. You can live your best life, sure, but there's this next level of fears that are those things like getting old that are just you can't avoid that. And I think for me, that's where psilocybin really plays a big picture, and all of that is bringing you to this level of acceptance and love for what has happened and where you are in that moment. So yeah, I thought that was nice sharing, George. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to share. I was just yesterday talking to a client who asked about judgment. How can you tell when it's judgment and when it's discernment? And what I replied is like, well, you try to feel whether it comes from love or from fear. So I was like really reflecting on the love and fear already, but from a different point. And I absolutely agree. I discovered also with the positive intelligence course, like also that you actually look at the fear and then you bring love into that. And yeah, I think that's basically what we are all saying, just with different words.
Thank you, Elsa. Absolutely. Yeah, we know these truths. We know these truths and we just surface them during this experience and actualize them. Beautiful. Any other sharings? Okay, team, then in that case, thank you so much for joining this fire circle at Evolving Temple, and thank you for being in this circle tonight. And also, I hope that this brings you value and some level of peace in your mind, and knowing that there are intentional people in the world who meet and create this kind of conversations in creating healing and development in ourselves. So it is such a deep honor that you were present to listen to my story. And it's such an honor. I really appreciate it. And next week we have an interview with Lux, and she's going to talk about the girl who had a hole in her heart. And we will continue this discussion. We're not going to repeat the content. We are going to share new ideas and thoughts next week and the weeks to come. So if you resonate with this journey, we invite you to join us and be in this reflective space. So I thank all of you, and with Jess's sharing, I will say goodbye to all of you. Love and light. Thank you. Jess, take it away.
I just want to say thank you for everybody for your presence today. And if anybody finds themselves in Bangkok and you're available on Sunday, we'll also be at the Amari Watergate Hotel at the Bloom Community Market. Just sharing and just enjoying a beautiful day outside. So if you're available, please stop by and see us in person. I do believe they're pet friendly, George. So please stop by and say hello. We'd love to see you guys there. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, can. So I can get the info. Where is the location? Maybe you can share in the line. Yeah.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. I wish you all the best and an inspiring day, and love and light.
Thank you.